So I have a question for you. So in I keep having to cough. So in Logic, is there a way to mute my track without it like stopping the recording?
This is not for the podcast. You just have a question?
Yeah.
I have a strong opener today, Gil.
Oh man.
I have like 3 strong openers today. And the first is the irony that is not lost on me, that you now have acquired yourself a deluxe Audio-Technica, I gotta look at my own microphone here, ATR2100-USB microphone. Is that correct?
That's correct. After the nightmare that was editing the last episode and all of the feedback and background noise I had to edit out, I bought a new microphone and new headphones.
Okay. Oh, I don't know about the headphones. That can be nice because you don't get like echo in the recordings, and I have to be kind of careful about that.
Yeah, I was getting your audio in both, obviously, your track and also my track.
Yeah, but for the microphone anyway, I don't know that necessarily you do have a bad microphone. You know, like it looks pretty good. It's just that it is, I think, a condenser, and you know, unless you really work it and really have a good setup for those, my understanding anyway is that you can just do better with what are these ones called that we're using now? I don't even remember, but just it looks like a regular, you know, microphone, like stage microphone.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about them, but it picks up a lot more audio, which is good. But that's also bad because I have people like walking around me and down the hallways and all that. So it also picks up all of that. So I'm just not in the best environment for a microphone like that.
Yeah, exactly. These ones are pretty much meant exclusively for people talking into them very closely, so it works very well. The irony of that situation, though, is that I am in an apartment complex we are right on the transition date for people moving in versus people that have just moved out. And I think this is related, but basically all of the smoke alarm / carbon monoxide monitors, they're all beeping every couple of seconds. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, despite our high audio quality, and it actually doesn't seem that bad right now. The one in my room seems to be behaving itself, but you might hear like a couple, you know, just beeps with a frequency as a result. Yeah, and that'll relate actually to another thing that I want to talk about. And
I heard it. Was that it?
Did you? Yeah, there was a beep. But here, let's smoothly use that to transition into a quick thing that I'd like to discuss. This is a little bit of follow-up from a previous episode where I had discussed kind of... So I'm slowly, casually working towards the development of a Apple Watch app. And basically it is just a timer that counts down to whatever alarm you have set. And that's it. But I have thought of a new feature. And the idea here is something that I think would be useful to podcasters and possibly other people. And it's a little bit ironic because I have this beeping in the background. But basically what I'm thinking is, what if you just had an app that every couple of seconds, or maybe every 15 seconds, it just beeped. But it beeped on the second, like according to an atomic clock or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so the benefit there would be if we both had this app, and we just like held it up to the microphone really quickly, we would get a simultaneous beep that would just make my life so much better for aligning this audio afterwards.
Yeah, I feel like that wouldn't even have to be, I mean, obviously, but that wouldn't have to be an Apple Watch app. That could be literally an app that does nothing but you press play at the same time, and then, you know, maybe when you're both ready or something, and then it starts just like a 5-second countdown, and then you can sync that instead of us having to do what we just did, and it's like all off and we do it differently every time.
Oh yeah, it would just be part of the Watch app because that's what I happen to be making. But yeah, it could be a phone app, it could be a website, and I'm even a little surprised that this doesn't exist in some capacity already. The only thing I can conceive of even is if we go to some atomic clock website that also lets you set an alarm, and then we wait for it to hit a whole minute, and then the alarm goes off. But that's still susceptible to possible like browser latency and things like that. So yeah, I don't know.
Actually, I wonder if like we both have iPhones, presumably running the same operating system, I wonder if we set just like alarms on our phone for a minute from now, if they would go off at the exact same time or not.
That's what I wonder, but I don't know that they actually. So here's what I've kind of learned. As I understand it, in the past couple days, most clocks are not actually that accurate, right? So if you take a Timex, just cheap wristwatch, like I think we have talked. I mean, I have one, so I thought we talked about it before. But if you take just one of any digital watch, really, over the course of like a month, you'll lose a couple seconds. And so that accuracy, though, as I understand it, is about the accuracy that you get in your laptop computer. And of course, it can talk to the internet and just constantly update its time. Mm-mm. But what that means, I learned this recently too, is that when we record, even if we have a simultaneous beep at the beginning, just due to the nature of the differences of our two machines, our two laptops, and I don't completely understand this, but they're not precise enough so that over the course of a 1 or 2 hour recording, like if we synchronize at the beginning, one of our tracks will be like longer length than the others, to the point that if you want to be really precise about it, you actually have to shrink one of our audio segments down so that they match up perfectly.
Okay. Yeah. So this was like maybe 6 years ago now, but I had a brief attempt at a YouTube channel, and I recorded the audio separately from the video, and I had that same issue, but it was happening within like 20 minutes of recording or 30 minutes of recording. It'd be off by like a full second. But I've run into that before.
I think it's crazy. I don't know, like we have this concept that we've gotten really good at time, and we have, because there's like, I was looking at the Wikipedia page, and atomic clocks, like ridiculously accurate, and they keep coming up with ways to make it like more and more accurate to only lose a second every like trillion years or something. But none of those clocks are in like most consumer electronics, or pretty much all consumer electronics. So what really happens is it reaches out to a time server to get accurate time. And to the iPhone point, in theory, those should just be able to keep up with the atomic clock, but I don't know that they do. I think, a lot of times they'll just be like a few seconds off or a whole minute off, maybe.
Yeah. Well, my assumption was maybe if one were iOS, one were Android, maybe they're not. But my assumption is that all iPhones are resyncing to the atomic clock at the same rate, so we would be off by the same amount. Even if it's happening every day, maybe it's like not even noticeable, and we're fine with just setting that alarm clock. But if not, we should be off by the same amount. At least I would think so. And maybe we can test that at some point.
Yeah, we should test that. I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah, me either.
So my second strong open is, both of these are meta, just referencing the current situation. And the other current situation is that we used to record this podcast through FaceTime audio.
Yeah.
And that worked. But recently, now that you have the microphone that, I don't know, it just works differently. So it's plugged into your computer, and then I think your headphones are probably plugged directly into the mic.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, if I call you, FaceTime audio won't ring on your laptop. And if you call me, it won't ring on my laptop. And since we're both on our laptops, it has now become almost an impossibility to use that as a communication thing.
Do you think that's a result of the mic, or you're just saying that's just something that happens?
I don't know. It's just a quirk, I guess. But the point that I'm getting at here is that we are now on Discord, and it's just built for this low latency stuff. And it's really easy to drop in imagery and stuff for us to share and things. And it has, even like we were talking about before we recorded, if you down in the corner, it has the latency of I don't even know how this works exactly, but it says 35 ms for me right now, so like milliseconds of, I guess, latency. And that's just great. It's so much better than FaceTime audio. So shout out to Discord. It is growing quickly compared to Slack for me.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, not 5 episodes, you were saying how much you dislike Discord.
It depends what you're doing.
Yeah.
We don't have to rehash it, but they are doing what they do well.
Yeah. I've never used it for calling, and I've been using it for all of 12 minutes, and it's been great so far. Definitely better than we were talking about this. I don't know what episode it was, but just how why are calls still so bad. Like in FaceTime, every once in a while, we've had run into the issue that you were just talking about, and then it would do this thing where it would be like delayed for like 2 seconds, and then it would like kind of speed through, like kind of sound like it's fast forwarding through what you were talking about, and then trying to like catch back up.
Yeah, it's insane to me that happens.
Yeah, so it's like in this weird place where like I just don't understand why the quality can't just be perfect. I mean, audio isn't that large, and there are much larger things streamed at decent enough quality that audio should be easy. So far, Discord has been doing that just fine.
Yeah, I asked on Reddit, and I think my current understanding is that Discord and so I mentioned TeamSpeak, I think, on a different one. And TeamSpeak is built as sort of like a professional solution, but as I understand it, Discord and TeamSpeak and all of the best ones use the same codec. So in theory, these are all equally as good, unless, I mean, if you're like running your own server or whatever. I don't even know the words I'm saying. I guess there's servers involved, but
Yeah.
if you're hosting something locally, then it's less likely to. I don't know, but in theory, it could get a little bit better. But Discord does a really good job, I guess, is what I'm getting at here.
As you were saying that, there was a weird quirk where it was like a tinny kind of ring. It was still like in place, but that was something different that I haven't heard in any other kind of call tool. But I've never looked into this. But does Discord have any sort of paid model?
No idea. No idea how they work on the back end.
Seems like a lot to, because I'm in a lot of kind of servers for things like cryptocurrencies and stuff, which is mostly messaging, but there's also like the call. There's like a chat room going at all times in most of them. Like how are they? I wonder how they're paying for all of this.
Yeah, it might be one of these situations where they're just like, investors give us money so we become this huge thing, and we'll monetize it eventually.
Yeah.
Or there might be some kind of like professional. I don't know.
We can figure that out later, I suppose.
Yeah, and we'll test our phone clocks against each other, which also will be hard to do, not in person. Now that I think about it.
We could do it on a call.
Yeah, but what if there's like latency? I don't know. Yeah, I guess it'll work.
Yeah, but we should definitely make that app. You can make the watch version, and maybe I can make the just regular phone version. We can start a whole Thinkularity suite of products.
Yeah, it's really, I have it very close. It's kind of glitchy, and I can't go past noon right now without it crashing everything. But after I get like dealing with time and like the format of like AM, PM and all that is really tricky. But after that, it's pretty smooth sailing. I got the crown like responding and stuff. So.
Oh, that's cool. And before that, you had never done any iOS development at all, right?
I have repeatedly attempted to complete a Udemy or Udacity, I always mix them up, course by Rob Percival. And it is a great course. I completely recommend it. It's like $10 when it's discount. I mean, it's always discounted because it's their business model. So it's like $10, and it says it should be like $100 or $200, and they're lying. But I have, like, that is a solid course. It's just that every time I get to the second section, it's not like directly project based. It's like talking about fundamentals or the playground or something, and I haven't gotten past that yet. So
yeah, when I was learning. And I'm not like an expert, iOS developer, but when I was learning, I used one called Hacking with Swift. And there's a free version where you can just kind of follow along on the blog. But then you could also pay for like an offline version.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great. It just kind of walks you through several different projects and like how to make these specific apps, which is cool because you're building an actual app as you're learning. And you're just kind of building skills on top of skills as you go through that. I made it through maybe 9 projects, and then I just started making one of my own. But yeah, that's another really good one if anybody else is looking to learn, or if you want to kind of start through a good one. It's really easy to follow, and it's like you pick it up super quickly.
I will throw out one more, and this is something that I found in the course of attempting to make this app. So there's a YouTuber, and he is like 13 years old or something, but he has these, fairly long, like half-hour videos just specifically about making real, apps, like project-based tutorials. His name is Jared Davidson.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I watched the same guy, and he's really good at walking through, like, this is how you do it and why. And he's actually a good developer. I think he's, like, older, though. He looks like 13, but I was watching his channel not too long ago, and he has this, like, I don't know. He has this, like, business going on. So I imagine he's around 18.
I'm looking, and he started 4 years ago. So whatever he is, subtract 4, and that's like the...
Oh, okay.
But, yeah. Anyway, great stuff. I have sort of a list of follow-up items here, Gil.
Okay.
Actually, let's play it like a little adventure game. Do you want to talk about choose your own adventure here?
Okay.
Apple Watch, or I guess Apple products, or... I guess kind of follow-up-y topics.
Is the Apple Watch not part of follow-up?
It is independent because there are enough items to have broken out into its own category.
Okay. Let's start with the Apple Watch, and then we can see how far we get on follow-up.
So I just sent you my complete list of show notes for this episode.
Oh, okay.
And for a moment, I would like to point out the fact that it just bothers me. So people call... 2 things about the word show notes. Number 1, autocorrect keeps wanting it to be 2 words. And I think I like it as 1 word. I don't know if it should be. But the other thing is that so people call show notes that like they're looking at while producing the episode. They call those show notes.
Yeah.
But then also when you publish it and you put links to things, you call that show notes too.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I don't know what to call, like which one is which, so I just call them both show notes.
This might be an opportunity for us to invent a word, Gil.
Oh, wow. Our first singularity word. Man, we are really just rivaling Hello Internet in every way. They better watch out.
Do you have anything right off the bat? Because we can dwell on this and think about it.
Let me think about that, and maybe we can see if we can come up with one towards the end of the show.
Okay, so let's let it stew. So the first thing I have here is Apple in general. And let's start with Apple Watch. Because, so from what I can tell, I say that word or that phrase a lot because I'm never sure of anything. But from what I can tell, watchOS 5, right? That's what we're on? That's what we're going to?
I think so. I'll
so
believe you on that.
Let's say 5. watchOS 5, it appears, is killing the time travel feature.
Oh. Yeah, you sent me a message last week sometime asking me to try something. As far as like how time travel worked. And I thought it had been killed years ago. I've never used it in any way, but I tried it. I apparently you have to turn it on and then try it. And I did that, and it was still working. But I thought that it was already gone, and I haven't used it. But it sounds like you have a use for it.
Well, yeah, so this gets back to our discussion of nobody turns on the features that they don't have set by default, especially because the time travel feature, I don't even think you can enable it on the watch, right? You have to do it on the phone settings for the watch.
I'm not quite sure. I do everything on the phone, so maybe.
Well, here's the thing. So imagine a Venn diagram, right? Most of the settings can be set either on the watch or the phone, but some settings can only be set on the watch, and some settings can only be set on the phone for the watch, which is one of the many problems that I kind of have with the Apple Watch, but I just...
I would rather do it on the phone. So are you saying you want everything on the watch then?
I just want everything somewhere. but you got to look at both. And every time there's an update, it's like, look, you look at every setting and see if one has changed on two different devices. So
I'm the kind of guy that like really looks at all the settings, and I've never even come across the time travel thing. I guess the first time I did that, or like the most in-depth time I did that, was when I first got the Apple Watch. I haven't done it in a few years, but I've only ever done it on the phone though.
Yeah, just time travel to me is the most innovative thing. Well, I don't know. We'll leave this open-ended, but time travel is so innovative because, what do you do with a watch? It's for time. Oh, what if you could, typically the crown on other watches moves the hands forward, right? But it does so uselessly. It's just for setting the time, and you only ever do it to set the time. But on the Apple Watch, rather than setting the time, moving the crown forward moves the time forward in a purposeful way so that you can see future events. And it is so fundamentally horror. What is like study of time, horrorology or whatever?
No clue.
There's a word for that, but it is just so about watches and time that I love that feature. And it's great because you can peek and just like, what do I have coming up at 3:00? And if you have your calendar complication, it'll just tell you,
Yeah, I remember them talking about that at WWDC and thinking like, oh wow, that's a really cool feature. But for whatever reason, I don't know why. Maybe because it is just so foreign to what a watch typically does. That's never been what I think to do when I need to like see what upcoming meetings I have or see what maybe the weather is going to be when I get off of work or something like that.
Yeah. In the 2 weeks that I briefly owned an Apple Watch, I did use it. It was largely time zone conversion. So if I was just like, what time is it here when it is, 7:00 in Amsterdam or whatever, I would just move it so that it said 7:00 in Amsterdam for my Amsterdam time zone complication. And then I could just look at my current time. And so it's kind of an easy way to convert time zones.
Yeah.
Even if not just the current time zone. So you could just kind of mindlessly see what in the future the difference will be.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, but it extends to, weather and just any complication can use that. And I think it's really powerful.
That's actually the other thing about it, though, is that it needs to be supported by developers. And if some do and some don't, it just kind of gets confusing.
It needs to be on by default is what it needs. And then it'll get support from developers. But instead, it looks like they might just kill it. And that'll be a darn shame.
So when you said that before, you said that they're going to kill it. Have you heard about them killing it anyway, or you just think that that's coming?
From looking at some discussion on Reddit, that it is not in watchOS 5 yet. And a lot of people think that it would be there by now if it were going to stay around. So
yeah,
that's just basically...
I think that I talked about this when we were talking about WWDC, but the watch would be, well, obviously battery life. We talked about that, but it would be much better if you could choose custom watch faces. I see why they don't want to do that for just like absolutely anything, but they could do it in a somewhat structured way. If they're just like, this is your watch. It's in maybe a grid of like 3x3 or maybe 4x4, and you can kind of select cells and like say, I want a 2 or 3 or 4 cell complication in this area, and like this one in this area. Basically, the modular face. I think it's called the modular face, but you can choose where all the different components go. Something like that would be really cool and seems fairly easy to implement. But like I use that modular face, and it does mostly of what I want it to do, but it could be laid out in a much more better, kind of more customizable way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would just really love them to do something like that if they're not going to open it up completely.
That's the darn thing, is that, that would take not a lot of effort, but not no effort. And it's like, compared to just using the modular face that lets you have, a decent amount of complications and variety on large and small.
Yeah.
How many people are going to customize it? And so power users, they just get a little bit neglected when you're talking about a company like Apple, who, other news topic, recently, I think they became the first $1 trillion company on paper or something like that.
Yeah. Last week they did, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so congrats there, Apple.
they need to just do it to make the modular face that, and just make the current modular face the default settings, which, as we just talked about, nobody's ever going to change anyway, except for maybe you and I, to where you can basically create the app that you're trying to make, probably, I imagine, just using that watch face.
Yeah, I'm always surprised that they don't, like, it. Some things would not be hard to do, right? Like, I would love if buried, I don't care how buried it is, put it even like a secret, you have to do some sort of weird combination thing for it to show up kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just put advanced controls that no normal person will ever stumble upon. And then all the power users, that are writing the blogs and reviewing your products and things, they will find those things and they will tell people about how you can improve the efficiency of, iOS or whatever with these little just toggle switches, right? That like just enable, people complain like, oh, I don't want the bars up in my top bar. Or I don't want the moon to show when it's in Do Not Disturb, or all kinds of little things. And if you just put a big toggle switch, like developer mode basically thing, like most browsers have this, like Chrome has a kind of like, if you type like flags or something with flags, it'll take you to this page where you can tweak all the little things. And man, if iPhone had that even buried to the point that no one would ever find it unless they looked it up and learned how to find it, I think a lot of people would appreciate that. And it would take almost no effort. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I forget what college it was, but I remember a few years ago reading about this college that had basically a big courtyard in the middle of all their buildings. And in that courtyard was just a big field of grass. And instead of building kind of sidewalks in the grass, what they did was they kept it grass, and then they waited for people to start walking through them, and they would kind of create their own trails. And then they found where the trails were created, and then they built sidewalks there.
Oh, my God.
Basically, what Apple should do is, like you said, really bury it, but give us a way to customize things, and then let us kind of tell you at the bit largest scale, like how things should be built. So how should the modular face be built? How should whatever be built? But just give us the ability to do it no matter how difficult it is.
Yeah. And exactly to your point, in one of my apartments, or like dorm rooms, I guess, in college, we had this big window and you could look out and there was this green space. And at one corner, there was like a little staircase that went down into like the field. Like it was kind of on a set into a hill. So there was a slope down on every direction to the green space. And so there was a staircase in one corner going down and a staircase on the other corner. And like 98% of people will walk directly from the last piece of the cement on one edge of the green space to the other edge of the green space. And you see this just, dirty brown worn path that people take a direct beeline from staircase to staircase, which is just
yeah. When I read about that, I was like, oh, that is genius, and it's like so simple and costs no more money.
I hope they do.
Yeah, but we all know that they won't. But it'd be a nice surprise if they did.
Well, but Tim listens, so
yeah, that's true.
He'll hook us up.
Yeah, he's one of the many CEOs that listen.
Speaking of, I guess, so my only other thing about the Apple Watch is, I don't think I've mentioned before, maybe I have, but the other thing that just I love that shows that Apple is still good at design is, if you don't, maybe I did say this, I don't know, but if you don't have the turn your wrist to wake the watch on, it has this thing, and it's another little setting, but you can't really do it if raise at wrist turn is turned on. But you can set it so that you can dim the screen from nothing, like dim it up from complete blackness with the crown. So before, even if you have time travel kicked in or time travel enabled, before it kicks in, there will be a certain amount of brightness. And once you hit 100% brightness, then you're just basically unlocked. And that is just great, because what it allows is, in a theater or whatever, if you just want to like glance, and it's an OLED screen, so black is pure black. And if you just want to see a little bit and then take it right back down, or you want to see a little bit and then if there's something, unlock it completely. I just think they did that so well.
We'll say that again. So how do you do that? I've never noticed that.
So if it's black, okay, if you have this setting on, it's a setting in there somewhere. Okay. I think it's like something like adjust brightness with crown or something like that. But so if it's completely black, of course you can tap the screen or press a button or whatever and it'll light up. But if you don't do that and you just turn the crown a little bit, it'll turn up brightness to like 1% and then at 2%. And you can turn the crown until it hits 100. And at that point, it just unlocks and acts as if you had pressed a button. But prior to that, it's in a dimmer mode where if you turn the crown all the way back down, it just goes black. And if you turn it up, it gets brighter.
I'll have to look for that.
I love that feature.
I also like that they introduced theater mode not too long ago, which is nice. That it basically it's like a temporarily turn off the raise to wake. You have to like press the button, but then it also does like do not disturb, which is just like a small kind of combination of features that they already had, but they turned it into an actual just button that you press. That's probably something that you do, somewhat frequently if you go to movies at all, or maybe, I don't know. It's just like a cool, easy feature.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Similar. Okay, so what we were talking about, where it would be cool if they had a bunch of developer type nerd tools buried somewhere. I would love to invert the functionality of the theater mode button, because by default, I do not want this watch to turn on when I move my wrist, just for power saving and because I have the ability to press a button. But sometimes if my hands are very full, I would like to enable move your wrist and it turns on. And, I could go into settings and I got to navigate my way there. But what I really want is just, one of those control center buttons. And basically I could do that, except my default way that I use the watch would then always have that little theater icon on the screen.
Yeah.
Which is not a huge deal, but it is. I really don't like that icon. It's like masks.
Yeah.
And it's just always there then, so.
Speaking of that, it would be cool to have just different modes of the watch. So I was just backpacking this past weekend, or I just got back like an hour ago. And I couldn't wear my watch because it dies. It would be dead by the time I got to the top. If I were to use any sort of activity tracking, and then if not, it would definitely be dead by the time I went to sleep. So it'd be kind of just a hunk of something on the way back down. So I just didn't wear it. And side note, I wear that watch so often that my wrist is completely pale, and now like my whole body is fine, but then I have just like a super concentrated sunburn just on my wrist. But anyways, because of that, I'm looking for just like a Timex cheap, like $10 watch to wear when I go backpacking. But to your point, kind of not raising to wake, and maybe some other features it could turn off without having to go into pure just turn off everything mode and make it that thing that you do in like power saver mode when you get down to 10%. Maybe like a backpacking mode, like something that's going to make it last. Maybe even turn off the internet, that's fine, and make it last for 2 or 3 days would be nice. But there is nothing like that. I'd have to shut it all the way down, and it'd have to completely disconnect from the phone and things like that, which, I don't know, there are still some features not connected to the internet that I would use, maybe like taking pictures or something like that far away, or just kind of, I don't know, anything. It would be nice to have like a backpacking mode, and like these other kind of modes of using the watch that people use. Like there are marathon runners, there are, there are lots of activities that you would want to have a nice watch for, and that there are specialized kind of watches for already. Apple could make these modes for the Apple Watch, but they haven't yet. But something like that would be cool.
You know what I think would be the perfect solution to this, Gil?
What?
They will never do it, but what I would really like is if, you know how you can swipe left and right and choose a different watch face?
Yeah.
I would love if you could enable basically a mode, like a little toggle switch that just says, hey, when I change watch faces, pretend this is a different Apple Watch, right? So if you swipe to a new face, it would not change your profile because I still want like my information there and everything, but every setting that I change, basically I would like to not affect other faces. So I could make, perfect exact Apple Watch for each situation and then just switch to it based on what face I was on.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be cool. So going back to like for like the backpacking example, I use this app, Gaia, Gaia GPS. It's a really good like backpacking app where you can like download offline maps. So for example, I would want to have that kind of tracking and see distance, time, things like that on my Apple Watch. But I don't need to be connected to the internet for that. It just needs to relay information that's being tracked to my watch. So that's an instance where if I were to just put it into low power mode, I wouldn't be able to do that. And now I still can't because I know it's going to die when I get to the top. If you can do something like that, just communicate to the phone, and that's all you need to do. Like that would open up a whole suite of apps and basically replace, at least for like short-term things, these like specialized GPS apps and things like that people use for backpacking now.
Well, I mean, it's not the philosophy. It's locked down, and it is beneficial. I freak out if there's too many settings. My favorite apps are ones that have literally no settings, which is rare.
Yeah.
But if there's nothing for me to even find and change, it's just like, even if this is not exactly the way that I want it to be, it is just blissfully simple in a way that I don't have to stress over changing. Because, I come across a lot of apps where it's like, what does this setting mean? And I have, as a power user type person, I got to like flick the switch and then go like see what it does. And it's like a very involved process.
Yeah.
So,
but there are ways that they could do it without a lot of effort. Like to your point about the different, treat the different watch faces as you swipe left and right as a completely different watch.
Yeah.
Maybe I could just turn off any connection to cellular or anything like that, but still keep Bluetooth on. And I could kind of create that sort of mode that we were talking about on my own. If you just give me the customizability of having my watch exist in more than one state.
At the same time, though, if you gave me that ability, I would freak the hell out. Like, that's too much power. I would spend definitely hours on hours customizing different watch faces.
Yeah. So
and, you got to kind of protect people from their own temptations to, perfect the interface.
Yeah, but that's, to your point, that's only really going to affect people like me and you that are like really into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Any normal person is not going to really spend any time on it. It's like, oh, Apple has this default setting and I'll just use that. But if they just really bury it somewhere, like we said, but still give us those options, even if it's going to make us go crazy trying to create the perfect device, I don't know, it seems like it would be a good thing.
Yeah.
You also have in here, AirPods are too convenient. What does that mean?
I do. I was gonna maybe leave that for another time, but maybe this will follow up on this later, possibly. But so for editing, sometimes I have my wired earbuds because if I go at it for several hours, I don't want to think about the battery life and things. And I think actually the microphone on these are slightly better too. So sometimes if I need to record something. So the wired ones still have their place, basically, right? Especially with this microphone too, right? They're plugged directly into my microphone right now, and I couldn't do that with AirPods. So latency is another good thing that they're good at. But yeah, just basically as a result of having those on my person, I have occasionally just endeavored to try them again as like let's see, now that I'm very used to AirPods, let's see how these work. And I took a couple of notes here. Basically, so it doesn't seem like a big thing, but AirPods so you can configure what you want double tap on individual left and right AirPods to do.
Yeah.
So for example, I have my AirPods set up so that if I double tap on the right, it will either play or pause. And then if you double tap on the left for mine, it will go back back. It just is like previous track. But if you're listening to like a podcast, back is interpreted as, when you swipe up from the bottom and it has like, sometimes it'll be a back button, sometimes it'll be a 15-second rewind button.
Yeah.
It's whatever that is. So if you're listening to a podcast, it doesn't just restart the podcast. You can use it to back up 15 seconds. And so I really like that feature because the wired ear pods, right? Just the regular ones that come with the phones. They do not have a way to jump forward or backward, whereas with the AirPods, you can configure it that way. And you can also configure things, you can do whatever you want. You can make it activate Siri if you want.
You can do that with the wired.
Oh, yeah, you can activate
Siri. 3
Siri.
taps. No, going back and forth is 3 or 4 taps. Or I think two or 3 taps or 3 or 4.
I knew some things supported that. And I was going to say they could do this in theory with that mechanism, but I wasn't sure if they actually do that on a system level consistently.
Yeah, I haven't used it since I got the AirPods, but I remember I would use it for podcasts all the time. But I would use the AirPods, the wired, I guess, ear pods before too. I just got new headphones because, like I mentioned, the other ones I had the big disaster. But I would use the ear pods before because of that. And then like I ran into this issue that we experienced one time where the battery was dying in one, so I took it out and put another one in. But for whatever reason, it stopped our recording. And we like lost like an hour of, I don't know, what is that called? Footage? What's recording called? We lost an hour of recording. And just like lots of weird quirks like that, like in taking them in and out because the battery life didn't last forever. And I only ever have one in at a time typically, so I just have them both do the same thing. But yeah, so
I'll just recap. I'm still kind of on the fence. I love the AirPods. The fact, here's what I love about the AirPods, right? How I was talking about how the crown, you can peak and turn the brightness up. Another example of Apple doing design in a kick-ass way is that on the AirPods, if you have both in your ears, right? As I said, you can set one to do, like if you double tap on one, it does one function, and if you double tap on the other, it does another function. But what blows my mind is if you pause audio, right? Instead of the AirPod doing whatever it was supposed to do, so on my left one, say it's set to previous track or go back 15 seconds in the case of a podcast. If the audio is paused and I tap on the AirPod, even the left one that's set to go back 15 seconds, it will just resume the audio. Because Apple has recognized, of course, nobody is trying to go back 15 seconds when the audio is paused.
Yeah.
And I just think it would be so easy for another company to overlook that and not think it through. And I very much appreciate the fact that they did that.
Yeah, because, they could have just, not even like, it's just that they even thought about it. Because that's a very easy thing to just like, that's a very easy like use case item in the, Excel sheet full of like 300 use cases to not even think of and say, okay, we'll just let that do whatever we assign to that, whatever we assign to that button.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that they thought of that and then actually like, okay, that's worth building and putting in there.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, so if you take one AirPod out and you have, one AirPod out of your ears and you have it enabled that it like detects in ear, which is I think the default, so most people do. If you take one out, it will pause, right? Which is great because it's like, oh, I'm trying to listen to somebody. Let's take it out of my ear to hear what they're saying. But, the other one can hang out so I don't have to be weird and have to carry two of them, right? So if you take one out, it pauses. And if you put it right back in, it'll start playing again. Beautiful. Exactly how it should work. Why would it work any other way? But what's, I think, clever is that if you take both AirPods out, right? So it has a little sensor to detect if it's near your ear or whatever. If you take both out, it now recognizes that both of them are out of your ears, and it trips into a state that now, okay, these things have been removed. So if you take both out and then just put them right back into your ears, it will not continue playing, which again, I think is a great feature just because if I want to pause it and I don't have pause configured to either of those taps, I can just remove both as sort of a quick way to pause it.
Yeah, I guess I'm not completely there with the... I always run into issues in taking the AirPods in and out, maybe because one's running low on battery,
Mm-hmm.
or, maybe an ear is starting to hurt or whatever like that. In like them not playing and pausing when I want them to. Maybe I just need to turn that auto pause off, because never has anybody like started talking to me when I have AirPods on and like I take one out to like listen to them. If I want to pause it, I just pause it and keep it in. So yeah, maybe I just need to turn that off and see like how that works, because the only time, most time that I take them out, I'm taking them out to like maybe switch AirPods, and it like never really does exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah. The one thing, so this is back to wishing that Apple would give like power users control. I wish that if I took one AirPod out, I would like to set a setting that says whichever AirPod is still in my ears, make it do this function.
Yeah.
So right now, if I take my right one out, the left one remains a go back button, or a previous track / 15 seconds back function. And I would love to just be able to say, if only one in my ears, then have this function no matter whether it's the left or the right. But that's just complicated in a way that I don't think people would even really understand.
Yeah, but that's exactly why I have them both do the same thing, because I don't put a specific one in my ear at all times, and I don't want to have to like remember which one I have in my ear. I only ever really use the play pause. It would be nice to do, any other options. Specifically, it would be nice to have one do Siri, one do play pause, but I would like if I only have one in to do play pause, which I don't have that option, so I just have it turned off.
Yeah.
And Siri just activated it and thought that I was trying to ask it to play Fantasyland Dark Ride Suite, which, let's see if I can turn that off. Okay.
But yeah, so here's my quick review of AirPods versus EarPods. Still on the fence. I mean, I love them. I do love the AirPods, even as a person that carried earbuds in my pocket neatly wrapped, so it wasn't like cord tangle wasn't a problem, and not having them wasn't a problem. I still love the AirPods. However, the benefits of the cheaper wired earpods, are not to be dismissed, because here's what I love. Number one, just pushing to pause, right?
Yeah.
First of all, they have all this functionality. You can do that double click, triple click thing, which I have not done that much of, but apparently it's there. You can hold for Siri, you can click to play / pause, and then you've got volume, right? So unparalleled control. But even at that, I have noticed the double tap to pause. Not only does it, require like 2 taps, which in itself has a delay, but then the AirPods, they never react immediately and pause something. So, just having the wired ones and clicking one button and then it pauses, like clicking a real button versus tapping something, is really nice. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Also, the tapping is like right in your ear, so it's just like not super comfortable either.
Yeah, that's true. And I just really love volume control, and also with these ones that are wired, if I leave them in my ears, I'm not bothered by it. Whereas with the AirPods, I'm like constantly thinking that it's wasting battery if I just let them hang out.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of volume control and like being able to customize the Apple Watch, like a feature that I don't know why they don't have is that like this works in some apps, I believe the Apple Watch apps, but it's not like default system wide. So I don't use the native Apple podcast app. I use Overcast, but I would love to be able to raise my wrist and just use the crown to like change the volume, that would replace the missing volume from like what a wire would give me. But that's just not a thing. Like I can't just raise my wrist on the watch face and scroll up and down on the thing to change the volume. It does nothing right now. Like, why can't you just assign it to volume?
Oh, are you saying, I mean, in the app, it would adjust the volume, right?
I don't know.
Like
I never have the app open, the Apple Watch app, for Overcast. I just have the watch face up. I could, I guess, like what that would make me do is open up maybe the drawer at the bottom, or the dock at the bottom, tap the Apple Watch or tap the Overcast app, and then maybe I can do volume in there. But to be honest, I've never even used that.
If you just left it on the Overcast app, I mean, I have distinct memories. I have distinct memories of turning the crown and volume changing.
Yeah.
So it's
definitely
a thing
in Apple apps, but it's not a system-wide thing.
Yeah, and maybe that's what they're trying to work in, and that's why they want to kill time travel, because if it couldn't work if you had both enabled.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, just make this default, and then you could say, do you want to replace that, or like have it be a one or the other sort of thing. I know that there's not like radio buttons in the settings, but it'd be something like that where you could check only one. Do you want this to be time travel, or do you want it to be volume, system-wide volume, not just if you're using like Apple Music or something and have the Apple Music app open.
Yeah, exactly. So one last thing about Apple real quick is that my shift key, my right shift key is nearly unresponsive. And I went to Apple and I talked to how there's like the guy that stands in the middle of the store. Like, I love how, I wonder if they planned this when they made the stores or if this just kind of came about. But like, there's the greeters, and then like in the dead center of the store is the guy with the iPad that you talk to do things.
Yeah.
Like schedule stuff. But I talked to that guy, and I was like, okay, I don't want to like schedule a Genius appointment for this if it's going to be like a lot of money or a long, long time. So just tell me like straight up what's the deal. And he told me that it will be, I think this is maybe a new program that they have where they will fix my shift key for free. And I think even like the whole keyboard gets replaced or fixed or something. But the caveat there is that they will need to take my laptop for 2 weeks.
Huh.
And I've had this cleaned before, and I feel like possibly, and I think he even implied that this is due to the fact that this keyboard replacement program is new. I certainly hope so, because 2 weeks of like not having a full laptop, I don't know what kind of person could just be like, yeah, sure, cool, I don't need a laptop for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a week should be max.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that's due to like the newness of this program. And I've had my keyboard cleaned before, and I don't fully remember, but I'm pretty sure I did not have my computer for 2 weeks. It might have been a day, maybe.
Do you think that's all it is? It's just like dust or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I'm pretty
like.
Go ahead.
Well, if it's responsive sometimes, it's not broken. So it's just some sort of connection issue. Maybe whatever the pad is that connects and completes the circuit needs to be replaced, or dust is like under there and stopping it from completing the circuit all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It should be pretty easy to fix.
I will give them props because I'm pretty sure that they did design this keyboard in a way that is inferior for durability anyway to other keyboards of theirs. So for them to be offering to replace it for free is nice. Yeah. I feel like maybe I could fix this with one of those compressed air cans and just popping the key off. I'm not sure if you even can pop the key off, but I don't know. Maybe I will. I've just been making do with the left shift key for right now.
Yeah, the left shift key. I don't think I've ever used, or the right shift key. I don't think I've ever used.
Yeah, it was rough getting used to it. It was not something I was comfortable with, but I am there now.
So, unless you have something else about Apple, do we want to get into your big flag, uh, United States flag referendum?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Gil. Do you have anything you want to talk about? Because
Okay, I'll go just really fast because it's not really a thing, and maybe it's something we can talk about, but just something that's happened to me.
you don't have to go fast. What's up?
Is Reddit. So I've started using the Reddit app again, and I've had two problems recently where there are some cases where the Reddit app that I was using before, I was using Apollo, wasn't doing exactly what I wanted it to do. But also, I've been looking for a way to intake news. And I haven't used the native Reddit app really since right after they bought, I forget what it was called now. But right after Reddit launched their own app. I haven't really used
Blue?
it. Yeah, Alien Blue. So I haven't really used the native Reddit app since kind of they first launched the native Reddit app. But I started trying it again, and they now have this news tab that I've been using. And I guess it's related to the podcast that the subreddits that you're subscribed to, or maybe it's just choosing its own. But I've found the news in there more interesting than before. And I talked about how the Apple app, it was just kind of the same thing every single day. It would refresh once a day, but after that, it was just static. So I've been really happy with the new Reddit app. And in line with that, I have my new Reddit account that's been on for 5 years. And I posted about that in the Lounge. And the Lounge is a Reddit subreddit for people that have Reddit Gold.
Okay.
And I posted because this is the second time I've reached 5 years. Because my other one was just my full name, Gilbert Osborne, so I deleted it. But anyways, I learned about this new thing to where if you get gilded in the Lounge, you're then moved up another level to what's called the Mega Lounge. Do you know about this?
Shit. No.
Okay, so there's this thing called the Mega Lounge that you have to get gilded in the lounge to be entered into. And I just stumbled across it because somebody gilded me while I posted about this stupid 5-year thing. And I learned that there's 30 layers to this. So if you get gilded in the Mega Lounge, you then go to the Mega Lounge. And that goes on for 30 layers. At least. I don't know how high it goes. It could go on forever. But I just think that's hilarious. There's this whole hidden thing. And there's only maybe a little over 1,000 people, I think, in the Mega Lounge. There's got to be 2 people in the the 30 Mega Lounge.
Where did you get the number 30?
So once you make it to the Mega Lounge, they let you in on the secret. And in there is when they say it goes up 30 levels. So who knows? It could go up higher and higher. I have no idea how high it goes. But now I'm on this new mission to get gilded in the Mega Lounge so that I can be promoted to the Mega Lounge and eventually see how high I can take it.
This, again, is just so quintessentially Reddit, and I love it.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. And, the whole thing is, it's hard to even, why does anybody get gilded in here? The Lounge is just where you post about, hey, I'm about to, propose to my girlfriend, or, hey, I just hit 5 years. There's not, a real focus. It's just, I guess, a lounge, just where you just talk about whatever. And, I don't know. There's all these different layers to it. I think it's so funny. And have you used the Reddit chat at all?
No, very sparingly.
So they've
confuses me.
I feel like recently, maybe last week sometime, they started really pushing the chat because I've been getting notifications you're now in the Lounge chat or you're now in the Mega Lounge chat, which the chat seems maybe more I don't know. I guess so for Hello Internet, for example, I think they have a Discord channel or a Discord server where people can just kind of talk.
There's an unofficial, official one, which is to say unofficial.
Yeah, there's this whole, there's this whole underlying thing to Reddit where everybody's secretly actually trying to just get karma if they're sharing something. Like maybe you're sharing it just because it's something you want to share, but you're really sharing it because you want that, sweet, sweet karma. So I feel like the chat is actually kind of a cool thing, although I haven't used it a lot because chats quickly, go down to just pure chaos.
Do you get karma in there? Is that what you're saying?
No, you can't. But I think that's what makes it cool is that it could replace maybe like Hello Internet, like r/Hello Internet. That's where you post like, whatever, the links or the provoking, in quotes, thoughts that you have about the episode. Actually, I don't even know if you can post in there. But anyways, there could also be the chat segment where people are just, the chat piece of that where people are just talking. And I was like in there a little bit in the lounge, and that's like, this is like a lounge where people are just casually talking about things. But I don't know, just lots of Reddit stuff happening this week that I have been interested in. I'm still trying to figure it all out, really.
Yeah, I'll say that. So the lounge or the chat, that in my experience, so Discord, I think we've seen the rise in popularity recently. And if you hit a critical mass and people are willing to look at all of the notifications and things, that a real-time chat is kind of ideal, right? But if you don't have critical mass or people do want filtered content to just see the good stuff, then a Reddit or a subreddit is really nice.
Right. Yeah.
So like, I've tried to start certain Slack channels or Discord channels, but they don't really have that critical mass and nobody's in there. And you know what they really should be is subreddits, because it's, it doesn't matter how unpopular it is. If you have something to post there, post it, and you follow it if you want to see when anybody else posts in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. That like there's a place in between the chat being useful. Like there's the chat being nothing and the chat being just chaotic. Like somewhere in between is the usefulness, and there are different purposes for the other sides. I also think like to your point, you could solve the lower end by making it a subreddit where people are just like posting things, and it's not, it's like a more of an asynchronous conversation to where you can actually post something, and if it's interesting, try and get some engagement, but it doesn't need to be in real time. But once you get to the part where there's like hundreds of people in it, and it's just like a waterfall of messages where there's not actually any conversation going on anymore. Like, why don't they just say, okay, if there's more than, one message every 2 seconds, let's split this off into another chat room. Because, if you're in a chat room like that, especially a like Reddit chat, you don't know anybody in there, and you don't care if you're in a group with one person, not the other. So if you're in, the lounge where maybe there's, I don't know how many people there are, but maybe 50,000 people, and the chat's just going crazy, just split that into like 5 chats and just let people chat separately, so there can actually be conversation. And then when it dies back down, maybe 2 rooms have died down to like not very much conversation, then you join those. Like there could be like really cool background dynamic sort of joining and disjoining of these conversations.
Yeah, there's certainly a sweet spot and certain ways to do it depending on the number of participants. And I will just say, YouTube does not do comments well. Not in the traditional sense, not in the real-time sense. Like if you see a live stream, it's just, oh, how many people are there?
Yeah.
Let's put them all in a chat. You can't even read anything because it goes 100 miles an hour past you. So there's certainly better solutions.
Yeah, that specifically would be like, that's any sort of live streaming like that, Twitch or YouTube would be a great use of that, where like these people don't know each other. Everybody's here for the person that they're watching. So just split this up into 10 chat rooms and let people talk. And, reserve, I guess, like the super chat's kind of a cool thing where you can donate and basically ensure that the person streaming sees your comments. But otherwise, they can just be in a single thread for all they care because there's no conversation happening anyway. Everybody's speaking to the person that's live streaming.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I had really was some small Reddit stuff.
Okay. In a similar vein, and we're kind of in, I don't know what we call this section, but it's pretty much complain or comment on features and developments in like services. So like Twitter and Reddit and Spotify and YouTube. Like, I don't know what we call this, but it seems consistent and I like it. This is our thing. So,
Yeah. We need to, we're already basically the generic version of Hello Internet. We need to come up with a corner for that.
yeah, I think we need a different word than corner. We need something else.
Complaining corridor.
Going to want to be a corridor. That'll work.
Okay.
I'll take it. But in the same vein, very quickly we can touch upon Spotify. Very quick thing. I have recently changed in the little settings thing. You can turn the crossfade up to like the full version of, I think it's 12 seconds. And so that'll like 6 seconds before a song ends, I think 6 seconds before it will fade it out and fade in the first 6 seconds of the next song.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that has been great. It's just really seamless. And I don't know, sometimes you get some fun kind of mix of the melodies and things, and it feels like kind of a DJ. So I've just been enjoying that.
Did you say Spotify?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do the same. I don't know what the time is, but I do the same thing for Apple Music. And whenever it happens, I'm like, I don't know, I just like get this weird feeling of, oh, that was a nice transition. And it's like, it just feels like you're listening to the radio, but like music that you actually want to listen to.
Yeah. And it's just, I wouldn't do it for an album because the artist has chosen.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Even some albums, maybe, but like a couple albums play into each other seamlessly anyway. And so that would be weird. But
yeah,
I've just enjoyed it. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. But Twitter, I have a couple things to say about.
Okay.
So the follow up here on the last time where I said, so 2 times ago, I think I said, I am not following anyone. And then I said I was following 5 people. And now I am not following anyone again.
How will you ever know when, what was it? Like when the moon does something?
When to look at the moon?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when are you ever going to know when to look at the moon now?
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. If I follow anyone, not only does their stuff show up in my feed, which, sometimes that's useful and good, so that's great, but I get notifications about anything that they do. Like this person liked this other random thing. So, yeah, as just a result of that, I am now back to following nobody. And I have two things to share with you about Twitter also. So one, I don't know if I got this as a result of following somebody, but I'm going to post here an image that you can look at and tell me how relevant you think it might be to my life.
Okay.
I got this. I had the notifications turned on for some reason. I think I was just so I could get this was, to my knowledge, this notification cannot be turned off. Like I went to the Twitter settings. All the switches are off except for direct messages because I was trying to see if I would ever, normally Twitter has notifications turned off on the system level.
This is
But
useless.
I turned those on so that I could get direct messages, and only direct messages was checked. And I got this. And for people listening that don't want to look at the show notes, it says Alejandro de la Torre and Fuji. I don't have a clue. I think it's a moment or something.
No
but
idea.
this person just followed Ross Ulbricht, who has 15,000 followers.
This reminds me of, so this is why I deleted Facebook off of my, I check Facebook maybe every twice a month, like once every 2 weeks. I don't have it on my phone either. But whenever I log in, I'll check my notifications. They're all useless things like this person commented on this person's photo, but I wasn't mentioned at all on that in any of this. Why are you telling me about that? Or like this person is, this person started playing this game, or this person posted this photo, but like it has nothing to do with me. Why am I getting a notification for this? This is the same thing where this has nothing to do with me in any way. Why are you telling me about this?
I don't know if anything can be done for that because I was considering unfollowing, like continuing to stay friends, but unfollowing everyone on Facebook. And I've come to the conclusion that that's way too much work and that I don't actually look at my Facebook notifications much anyway. So
Yeah. The only time I
it's
get on
it's
Facebook
a
is when
necessary
I'm like
evil.
trying to sell an old TV or something.
Yeah. But so I have one more image here. And this one is, I don't even know how I found this, where somehow it showed up on my screen. So this, you know how Snapchat has their little snap, what do they call them? Snap codes? It's not called a snap
For
code.
like adding a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got a snap code. I don't know.
Is it a snap? Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, this is Twitter's version. And I think Facebook even has a version that is cool. Like if you look at it, it's a bunch of like circles that are concentric and things. And Twitter's is just. Do you have any reaction?
I do. So I have seen the one for Facebook that's like the circles, which is interesting. And then there's the one for like Venmo, which I think is just more a standard QR code, maybe smaller. But no, I have no reaction to this.
To me, this is garbage. Because here's what we have here. A regular QR code. No different. It is a little bit rounded, so it's a little bit stylized, and it's got Twitter blue in the background. But now, in the dead center, we've put my profile picture as, a circle, because Twitter has circle profile pictures now. But it is cut out, like it is surrounded by a blue square. And then in the bottom right, we have a little Twitter logo. And I just think it doesn't look good. And I also wonder, because it looks like a regular QR code that's not even their own like standard, like Facebook's circle thing. And I wonder is this just a QR code and then they covered some elements of it? Because QR codes have a redundancy built in so that you can cover stuff and they'll still read.
Oh, okay.
And I wonder if this is some kind of weird modified thing where this chunk in the middle, there actually isn't anything there, or if they just pasted my profile picture over the information and they're relying on the redundancy of the QR codes, which would be especially lazy.
Yeah.
But it's hard to tell.
I don't know a whole lot about QR codes, but I don't know. I'm like in this weird place where I think that they're both overutilized and underutilized. It's like, so in iOS 12, just in the camera app, and I think we've talked about this, but just in the camera app, you can pull it up and pull it up to a QR code and it'll read it, and you can open that, in the browser or whatever, which I think is actually useful. But they're just, to your point, I guess, they're just so ugly. Is it like, there's got to be a better way to like show this? Like the image could be of anything. It could be just your face with maybe some little thing like in the top left that says, read this as information. And then it says, okay. And then reads your face and says, okay, now go to this URL. But there's got to be a better way to like do all of this as a QR code. But it is nice not to have to like type in twitter.com/ I don't know, what's your Twitter? Whatever your Twitter is.
The River Paul.
Yeah.
The River Paul.
So it'd be nice. It is nice not to have to like type out whole URLs. But then you see them like on billboards and who's like driving down the street trying to get a QR code on a billboard. But I don't know.
Yeah, there was a QR code in a video that I just watched on YouTube by, I think, Polymatter, who is a part of Standard TV, which is like a project by CGP Grey. And so, I don't know, it's very CGP Grey-like content, but there's a QR code in the video. And I scanned it because I'm weird and went through all the trouble to like pause it. And I think I even had to take it into Photoshop to make it readable. And I scanned it, and the text is just, why are you scanning a barcode or a QR code in 2018?
Yeah. I like the idea, but there's definitely better implementation.
Yeah, I think this is just Twitter being very obviously lazy because they weren't sure and didn't want to put a lot of resources in. And there are better ways, and it's what Snapchat has done and what Facebook has, especially Facebook. I really like theirs, actually. But
yeah, just that I don't like Facebook. Actually,
yeah.
I'm fine with the company Facebook. I just don't like Facebook.com.
Yeah. Well, the company is also in question.
I'm not a huge fan of the company, but I'm fine with it. It's just the actual Facebook is just, I don't know, we've talked about this, but it's just cancer.
Yeah. Two things that I'd definitely like to get to. The first thing is I want to discuss the topic of the recent shark theft from the San Antonio. Are you familiar with this?
Not at all, but in the show notes you just sent me, where is it? Yeah, shark theft. It was like, I was that drew my attention. What is this?
So let me read this here. So this is from CNN. What began as a quick grab and go theft Saturday at the San Antonio Aquarium, suspect leaving a trail of water drops as he hurried away with his dripping prize of a small but very much alive shark, ended with the return of the shark. And we don't have to go too far into it here, but from what I can tell, this is another part of the article, one of the men quickly bends over and pulls something from the tank using a net that aquarium officials said he'd brought with him. The man disappears out of camera. Anyway, my understanding, right, is that these people attempted to steal a shark from the aquarium. It's like an open container or whatever. And I guess maybe it's not that dangerous of a shark, but like, I think, am I reading this right? That they used a stroller, like they just pretended it was a baby.
Send me this link.
2 women with an infant wandered through the facility with a baby stroller in tow. Yeah, I don't know. I should have actually learned about the thing before we talked about it. But here's the link. It's wonderfully ridiculous.
I love the title of the article. The case of the San Antonio stolen shark is solved. Oh, yay.
So, they walked in, put a shark in a baby stroller, and walked out. I haven't really read the full article in its entirety, but that's what I'm taking from this.
It says the suspect staked out the pool for more than an hour. Like, what was this? Why was this big heist? What was their plan? Oh yeah, you're right. The Great Shark Heist.
I just love it. I don't know if I have any comment at all. I thought this was hilarious. And I'm also a little bit wondering, did they just want a shark? Can you sell these sharks for a lot of money? Where's the motivation here?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I guess they just really want a shark. I mean, a shark would be cool. The shark's name is Miss Helen.
Yeah.
I don't know. This whole thing is bizarre. I want to like talk to the person. There's a video here. Maybe I'll watch that later. But I want to like figure out the motive for this.
Okay, so the last thing that we can discuss today is, I think I texted you, and I purposefully have not given you much more information, but I told you that I have designed a watch, or I had an idea for design of a watch. And so I would like to share that with you and just get your thoughts on it. Okay. So this is separate from my Apple Watch app idea.
Oh, okay.
But it is loosely related.
Do you have your Apple Watch app designed out?
What do you mean?
Like, have you gone into like Photoshop or something and mocked up the different screens, or are you just kind of building?
No, it's really simple. It's going to have one screen, and it's the 2 numbers. One is going to be the current set time, and the other number is going to be the time until that time. And so that is the entirety of the app right now.
Oh, okay.
It's very simple. Yeah. So I'm not overly concerned about aesthetics at the moment, and however it kind of works out, if it ever gets done, will be fine with me. But I kind of mocked up a watch here, and this is just kind of a little bit different than a watch that I've seen previously, than any watch I've seen previously, and inspired by, I was talking with my girlfriend, and she said, so this feature that I want, right, where I can set an alarm, and then there's a timer until the alarm, so I want to count down until a specific time.
Yeah.
That kind of exists in existing watches. And I mean analog watches. So if you have pretty much any diver watch, and this is not usually how they use them, but they have a prominent marker on them, right?
Yeah, are you talking about? So they're the ones with like the etching around the sides or whatever it is, and you can kind of spin it to put wherever the current minute hand is, so that you can then see time and time since that, or you can maybe spin it to where you want to go and see time until that.
Exactly. So there is a bezel and it rotates, and you can just click it. So it has a marker basically, and what usually they do is they align it with the minute hand, and then however many, you can see how much time has elapsed for divers so that they don't run out of air. But you could also align it with a time that you're interested in. If 6:30 is when you have a flight, you just set it to, the 6 o'clock position for 30, and then you can see, all right, when the minute hand hits that is when my flight leaves, right? So that's kind of the functionality there, although typically I don't think people tend to use it that way.
Yeah.
But so that combined with the idea that I kind of wanted like a calendar watch. So just at a glance, here's my use case, right? At a glance, I would like to be able to see what day of the week corresponds to what day of the month. Kind of a converter almost, right? So like what day will the 15th of this month be? And I think this is a great thing for a watch that I haven't seen a lot of watches successfully do. There are a few, but I think they're just kind of clunky. And so anyway, there's a couple of these things combined, and I was like, I kind of want to design a watch, and so I came up with a concept, and I want to send it to you now and see what you think.
So is this outer rim, you can rotate that?
Yeah, that would be a bi-directional rotating bezel.
Is that including the black rim?
Nope. Just the silver part would be the bezel part.
Okay, I think I'm going to have you explain to me how this works.
Yeah, I think it is not immediately obvious. So the most basic thing is that if you look at the most kind of inner part of it, you see 12 little dashes. And so the way that this works is those 12 dashes represent 12 hours. And the red thing is a minute hand, and the black, white outlined hand is an hour hand. And so aside from the bezel, like this is a completely standard watch. It goes, the hour hand goes around the face once every day. Minute hand goes around once every hour. Completely standard, right? The only thing that's different about this is all of the little writing on the bezel, which is the white numbers against the black, and then the bezel itself. I'm sorry, the writing against the face and then the bezel itself. And from that, we're able to do kind of some interesting stuff. So before I get into the calendar stuff, you can just look at this little red marker here. And so much like a diving watch, if you want to point that on a specific time, so if you want to point it at the 30-minute mark, and then, wherever the red hand is, whenever the red hand hits that other red mark, that's, that's in between hours. So if it's 5:30, then that becomes an alarm for 5:30. And it works in kind of a countdown way because you can sort of see and gauge how close that hand is to the red marker. Whereas with like digital watches, if you set an alarm, it doesn't give you any reference as to how close you actually are.
Yeah.
And of course, the bezel is not attached to anything. It's just a bezel, so it wouldn't like set off an alarm or something. But it is useful because you can do the thing that I'm talking about where you have a countdown basically until a specific time of day. But also like we said with the diver watch example, you can set the red thing to be on the minute hand. And then if you look closely at the bezel, there's little lines that mark every 5-minute period. So you could use it just like a diver watch. And then also if you set, say, you want 15 minutes from now, if you go to 3 notches to the left of the red notch, now you've got a 15-minute timer. So align that with the red hand, and now when the red hand meets the red mark on the bezel, it has been 15 minutes. So you've got kind of that triple threat of countdown clock, timer counting down, and timer counting up, just like kind of you would with a dive watch, basically. Now where things get a little more interesting is that this bezel also has on it days of the week. So Monday has been replaced with the notches just because the M looks like a W and I didn't want confusion. So every notch is an M. And it just goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is a U because S and S for Saturday and Sunday are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then it repeats 4 times across the face of the watch. And basically all you have to do is align either the current date. So align the current date with the day of the week that it currently is. So for today, as we are recording, it is August 5th, a Sunday. So if you just take the U, which stands for Sunday, and align that to the 5, now you have the bezel accurately shows what day would it be on the 21st, and you can just look at 21 on the inner face there and then see what day it would be based on the bezel.
So do you spin the outside for, I guess, for tracking where that red line is? Say if you want to count down to maybe 15 minutes from now, then the dates would be off.
Yeah. You'd have to just basically pick the way you want to use it, and I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. It's just, do you want it to be calendar function or do you want to use it for the kind of timer function?
Yeah. Well, I guess you could maybe make another metal ring that's separate from the outer metal ring that could lock or unlock. So, for example, when you pull the crown out, like a half step, maybe it locks to the inner ring. And you can, or maybe it detaches from the inner ring, and you can line, the current Monday up to whatever the day of the week is, and then lock it back in, and then that'll allow you to turn the outer 2 rings at the same time whenever you're changing times.
That could be interesting. I hadn't thought of that. The beauty of what it is right now is that this is literally like a $10 watch that you buy at Walmart. You know how they have the crown and it changes the time?
Yeah.
Like if you just put a new face on that and then add a bezel,
mm-hmm.
this works, right? So as soon as you have stuff where like you pull the crown out and it like lets you change, I don't know, stuff with it, it becomes a lot more complicated, but
yeah,
that would be pretty cool.
Overall, I do like it a lot. So there's 0 clicks, 1 click, 2 click.
Right.
So what is that?
That is, okay, so this is to address the scenario of what if it is the 28th of the month. And by the way, if you look at the top, it has 2-30 and 3-31. That's just to say, so August has 31 days.
Yeah. That part was
and so, 28 is the only thing that divides evenly by 7. So that's just how it had to work out. So you can kind of look ahead to the end of the month. But say it's the 28th of August, right? And I want to know, a week from today, what are the days going to look like? It's actually a little bit confusing because as soon as I run out, after 3-31, it just goes to 4. And so what that really should say is 1. The 4 should be a 1 if I'm trying to look at the month from now. And so the way that I've set this up is that rather than just setting... So basically, look at the bezel. You've got 4 M's, 4 T's. You've got 4 of each day of the month. And that means that you can have this set to 4 different positions along the face of the watch and it still be correct and line up for the days of the month, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of use that to my advantage. And if you use the little inner part that has the thing about clicks and days, if you put the red thing in the section that has the month you are currently in, so we're in August, so if you just turn it to the left to the August section on the left-hand side, keep the red notch in that section and then align it so that the days match up. And now basically what you have is just a little reminder that you can look down and see it says 3 clicks there. And what that means is if you just click the bezel 3 times counterclockwise, just by virtue of the number of days in the month of August, now you have a view of the month following August. So September is now, the bezel aligns with the days for September so that you can see the month of September's dates. And then click it back 3 times and you're back to August. So it's just a little way that in case you're need to look a month ahead or you're towards the end of the current month, it's not limited, because a lot of other watches I've seen, they show the days of the week, but if you're towards the end of the month, it's not going to help you at all because you can't see the next month.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really interesting. I would like to be able to use it, but
I have kind of a little mock-up where I can just rotate that outer bezel just on my computer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it all works out. And the other thing that I just wanted to do was I wanted it to be, I have never come across one of these dive watches that has like a rotating bezel and this feature of timers and stuff where it's actually super prominent, where the, it would always take a lot to think about. So I made everything colorless except for the two things that will need to line up whenever it's the time that you're trying to get to, right?
Yeah.
So when the reds align, that's what's important. So I kept that kind of in mind and just made it super just easy to look at a glance and kind of derive utility out of.
Yeah. You should take this to the next step and make it model the whole thing out in Fusion 360 and then basically 3D print or something and just put, because none of this is specialized timekeeping stuff.
Yeah.
You could buy a really simple, the mechanics of a watch and put that into something and just kind of mock it out. That would be really cool.
Yeah, what's great is it is literally just a standard battery-powered quartz watch, like Walmart for $10, and I could put a new face on it and then somehow attach a bezel with these, days of the week written on them, and essentially that is the prototype for this. So
yeah,
that's kind of the nice simplicity of it. And yeah, it's like every other watch that's ever been made except for the bezel, which also lots of watches have had bezels, and I think that would be not too extremely complicated either.
Nice work.
Yeah, thanks. That's about all. I just wanted to go over that. I want one.
You can find links to everything we talked about down in the show notes. You can follow us on Twitter, or I would prefer you to follow probably our subreddit. A few people have actually commented there, which has been really cool.
Hey.
And get some conversation going there. And we've also talked about doing kind of a segment where we both have an idea for something and kind of present that and then have a poll go back and forth. So maybe once we get a few...
Wait, do you want to do that?
Do you have something?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I have one too, but it's not great, but I do have one. So.
Mine's not great either.
Okay, so then there will be a poll in the comments down below, and we'll say that again, but we're both going, basically the idea is we both present an idea for some sort of business. The category is not super specific. And then we'll, in the comments, or I guess in the show notes, there'll be a link to a poll where people can vote. And then it'll be just kind of this fun thing where we can keep a tally on who has the better ideas, I guess. I don't know. It's just like a fun interactive thing that we'll post. And so this will be the first one. I'll let you go first.
No. I want to hear your skill.
Okay. So I have been in Seattle for 2 months. And it's difficult to find friends these days. I'm 27 years old. How do you meet people? And even me doing this podcast, I'm not great at talking to people. I have to have a glass of whiskey, and that kind of helps. And so
yeah, I got my bourbon here.
Oh, nice. What are you drinking?
It's Old Barton something? I don't know. Okay. It was not the most expensive thing, but it's pretty good.
Okay. I've been trying Japanese whiskey, so I'm drinking Hibiki. But anyways.
Yeah, look at you. You're full Seattle integrated now.
I suppose so. But anyways, it's hard to find friends. So my wife and I have been trying out Bumble. Bumble has a friend finding feature. But it's just kind of I don't know, it's the same thing as Tinder, basically. You just kind of swipe left and right. And it's purely based off of a short bio and a picture, which I'm not super fond of. Can't believe somebody stole it.
So,
and also, there's this awkward piece where you're like trying to set up like to meet each other, but nobody, like everybody's too cool to actually say, hey, let's meet. So my idea is it's a friend matching app that you kind of put in information about yourself. Maybe it's, personality traits, things you're interested in, backpacking, poker, basketball, whatever it is, and whatever other questions. It matches you with people, but there's no chatting back and forth. It's just, it prompts you with a thing to do. So if you're both interested in poker, or maybe 10 people are kind of match enough in the personality profile and they're all interested in poker, it just sets up a poker game and just like creates the event that everybody goes to meet new people. And you could either accept or reject it until you have enough people for the event. That's the idea, though, is, it matches you with a group of people and also decides what the event is and when it is and things like that for actually setting up and actually meeting.
Well, so like, can you say your availability kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. I haven't designed the whole thing out, but it's taking out the awkward piece. It's actually like bringing in personality stuff and like matching you with people, because that's only built for dating basically right now, from what I've found anyway. But it also takes away the thing where you're like, oh, what should we do? Or should we go get a coffee? Or how do we hang out? Or like, nobody actually wants to say like, hey, I want to be friends with you. That's just not something that you say to people. So this takes all of that out and just says, hey, you are all doing this, either accept or reject. Maybe in your profile you can say, weekends work better for me, or weekdays after 6 o'clock or something work great for me. And it could also factor that in for when the thing takes place. But I don't know, something like that would be cool. And I could go into all the different use cases, but yeah.
That's why you just make a podcast, Gil. That's the secret. I mean, you pretend like, oh yeah, we're doing this for, building our little brand here, but it's just talking to people with the side effect of having to edit afterwards.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened to us, I guess.
Yeah,
we're pretty good friends now, and but like the thing is, 90% of our conversation is recorded that we've ever had.
I like it. It's like, a record.
Yeah,
I kind of wish. Yeah, I would not mind a lot of previous conversations that I've had having just been archived, and I can go back to them or share them with people.
Yeah.
But the friend thing. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I still remember when we met at a coffee shop. Like, we had a really interesting conversation, and I was like, man, we just talked for like an hour. We should have recorded that, because we had already started talking about the podcast, because as we mentioned previously, we met recording an episode of a podcast on some other like random matching podcast. But
yeah, our first episode could have been discussing the how the podcast would be.
Yeah,
that would have been meta.
Yeah.
Speaking of podcasts, I was just on episode 2 of the revived Two Tims Talking. If anyone's interested, we talked about some flags. So you might get some redundant flag content if we discuss flags in a later episode. But I don't know. I think it went pretty well. But yeah, the friend thing is definitely super a problem. I just saw this like meme. I think it was on the subreddit that was like funny but true or something like that. And it was, nobody talks about the miracle of how Jesus had 12 close friends in his mid-30s.
That's funny.
It was like real true.
Yeah. Even the best friend group in history of the Friends TV show is only 5. So
yeah. Okay, so I'll do mine. Mine's a quick pitch. So, a little robot. Okay? Imagine, let's put you in the mindset here. Imagine
Should I close my eyes?
Oh, yeah, close your eyes. Imagine, if you will, hoverboards. Not the like sci-fi ones, the stupid ones that we ended up with that are banned on planes and everywhere.
Okay.
Right? Imagine that, but instead of stupid, it has a trampoline on top of it, okay? And so basically, you bounce, and then wherever you bounce to, the little robot moves the trampoline to under where you're gonna land.
Oh, okay. Oh man, that would be really cool.
Wouldn't that be so fun? It would be like an infinite trampoline park.
Yeah.
Just like a weird mode of transportation.
I think you need to. Okay, I have some advice for the pitch. It's not a mode of transportation.
What is it?
I don't know. This is just like in a like gymnasium or something.
The only real use case is like freaking people out at the mall.
Yeah.
It would just be a weird YouTube video, but
Yeah.
I think people would actually buy them if they were like a thing.
Yeah.
It's something along the lines of like, have you seen these little like jetpacks and it's like attached to a little boat that follows you around and like it sucks up water and shoots it out of the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, those things. It's like that, but on land, kind of.
Yeah. I feel like this wouldn't be super difficult to make. Like, I feel like we could make this with like $300 and some like deep development skills.
Yeah, the tricky part is the robot reliably going to where you're going to land. But, I mean, you could also make this work just by having a remote control robot with a trampoline on it. And you just, trust yourself to move the robot correctly.
Yeah. The hard part will be making it strong enough, but I feel like we could actually make this. It's just like a couple motors, it's a workout trampoline, a camera, and like a Raspberry Pi.
Well, it doesn't even need to be strong enough. You just make it so that, like, maybe a spring system, so when there is no weight on it, then the trampoline is off the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And the robot can move. And then, when there's weight, the trampoline presses down, and then it relies on, the things that normally support a trampoline.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really funny. All right, so
I guarantee.
Vote below.
Definitely, it would have to get 1 million views on YouTube, minimum.
Yeah.
It would have to.
Yeah. That would be fun. I'm trying to think of like another use case for that.
I mean, this is not a lot.
Yeah, I'm not coming up with a whole lot, but it's still really fun. It's like it's like you buy, instead of buying a huge trampoline, you buy this one small trampoline that follows you everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's a problem people have.
Pray to God that it doesn't like get stuck or run out of battery.
Yeah.
Get confused.
You could also build in some like hydraulics into all the legs so that when you are jumping on it, maybe it gives you a little extra force up. You can jump extra high.
Oh, yeah, it's got like turbo mode.
Yeah, and that's the expert mode. So I have the boosted board, which has expert mode and it has beginner mode. So this would be the expert mode. Shoots super high. I guess you just hope the battery doesn't die and like doesn't follow you and you just like splat into the ground. But
yeah, like the robot just pushes up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, let's get this.
It could even be like you could make it so that basically you just don't exert any energy, but just keep bouncing up and down because the robot compensates for your energy loss and just you can kind of like weirdly up and down, oscillate but hover.
I've seen much less realistic Kickstarters before, so surely we can get this funded.
Let's do it.
All right.
Robo Trampoline coming to you soon. That's the best name I have right now. Do we have a name, by the way, for our show notes, the word show notes?
It's really hard to have a conversation and think about a new revolutionary word at the same time. But let's say we'll put that as follow-up for next time, maybe. Actually, maybe we can do that'll be our next voting thing. We each come up with a word, and then people can vote on what the official word is.
I like this.
Okay.
Yes, that'll be the next challenge.